To any viewer of Invincible, Omni-Man was almost certainly a standout of the show. He's an amazing superhero antagonist, certainly one of the best in recent memory, but there's a very good reason for that. Omni-Man isn't a straight-up villain in my eyes. He is special, and the newest episode of Invincible, Season 2, Episode 1, really showed me why. Stay tuned for the end of this video, but let's take a look at what makes Omni-Man such a compelling antagonist.
You want to die for this planet? Fine! What's 17 more years? I can always start again.
Now at a first glance, when we see him at the beginning of the first episode of Invincible, it seems that Omni-Man is the Superman archetype. An alien comes to Earth and protects it, a secret identity, gets married, etc. But by the time we finish the show, Omni-Man is starting to look more like Homelander, an OP super person who's beloved by the people but misuses his power for whatever reason. And I think the reason that Omni-Man ended up being an antagonistic character in the story is very interesting. While Superman was raised on Earth by normal parents, Omni-Man was raised on his homeworld where only the ruthless survived and gave him and his whole species a superiority complex. This complex leads to the Viltrumite invasion, which leads to Omni-Man coming to Earth, and all of that happens before and during the show, culminating when his son, Mark, gets superpowers. While Omni-Man claims that his wife, Debbie, is just a pet in the 7th episode, it is clear that he loved her, and even more, he loved Mark. From what we hear, Omni-Man never played the biggest role in the life of his son, though. With the superiority complex thing, Omni-Man was really rooting for his son to share the Viltrumite superpowers that he has, and he had just about given up on that idea that his son would get powers by the time the show begins. With the Viltrumite mindset of only the strongest survive, a son which isn't strong in his point of view would be very disappointing and would go against Omni-Man's plan of world domination, which was soon to come. I find the idea of Omni-Man seeking world domination very interesting because he masquerades as a superhero, yet always it's the mustache-twirling villains who just want the world domination. But while the boring villain wants world domination just for power or riches or whatever reason, Omni-Man wants it for a purpose he sees as noble in the expansion of the Viltrumite Empire. Since he was indoctrinated into the system and came out on top, just like all the other soldiers in the Empire will be, he genuinely thinks the Empire will help people out because it helped him out because now he's very high up. So now, the board is set. Mark has his superpowers, Omni-Man, he's in a position of power, and he can really start preparing for the invasion. We know how all this plays out, starting with the killing of the Guardians of the Globe, start brainwashing Mark so he'll accept the Viltrum ways. Omni-Man, he just thinks it's going to be a swift victory. Up until this point, the writers would have had a good enough villain, one who's interesting with the voice talent of J.K. Simmons. People would have liked Omni-Man, but he wouldn't be nearly as popular as he is now if the writers just stopped there. Instead, they make a brilliant move to treat Omni-Man as a hero. In general writing advice, that when you're making a story, you need to be as mean to your characters as possible. Give them something they want, have them lose at every turn until the change of perspective, and then they rise up and come out of it a better person. And for the most part, they do that when it comes to Omni-Man. His goal is to weaken Earth for the swift invasion, but he finds attachments. He begins to love his family. I don't think Nolan would have settled down with Debbie if she wasn't the best woman he could find and someone he really loved. And with Mark, many years before he got his powers, we see a flashback of Nolan and Debbie watching Mark's game. While at first, Nolan thinks it's a waste of time, he still shows up. The stereotype of a bad father is not showing up to baseball games, and there, Omni-Man was. Sure, he still had the perfectionist attitude toward Mark, thinking the game's a waste of time when Mark kept missing the ball, but once Mark got the home run, Omni-Man didn't give some battle cry like, "Yes, you're winning!" He was actually proud of his son. He shares the joy like his wife says. And when he begins to train Mark, he clearly takes a lot of pride in that. There's, again, a perfectionist attitude in him with what Mark does with his powers, who he tends to fight, but in the end, he is still proud, even if he would claim it just as the benefits of the invasion. Of course, though, Omni can't live this perfect life forever, of family and conquering their home at the same time. Cecil breathing down his neck because the Guardians of the Globe leads to problems, and when all the cards are out on the table, Nolan's family doesn't stand with him. And this leads to the inner beast of Omni-Man really coming out. When he's killing the Guardians of the Globe, it was something he needed to do. It's nothing personal in his eyes. But the killings in episode 7 and 8, they were out of rage and anger, and he took joy in killing people. When Omni-Man calls Debbie a pet in episode 7, it isn't because that's how he felt during the 15 plus years of their marriage and dating before that. It's a way to try to justify the marriage, to make himself feel better, to justify the 15 years after he feels like he got betrayed. And then we have the fight with Mark. Pillar of Garbage recently made a video, a great video, about Invincible, 2 of them actually, but the one I want to mention being about superhero deconstruction in Invincible. In that video, you really should watch it out, but the point he makes is Invincible's real power is endurance, which causes enemies to feel guilt on their decisions. They can keep punching him, and he's still going to be alive, so they got to witness what they're doing. He points out in the Omni-Man vs. Mark fight, where at the end, Nolan is just too ashamed by his actions, causing him to leave the fight, which is an interpretation I just love and I totally agree with. Omni-Man is beating up Mark with no real intention, using his son to massacre the humans, and he has no role in the furtherance of the invasion to beat up Mark, only trying to show Mark to obey the only way he knows how with his Viltrum heritage. But here comes the downfall of Viltrumites as a whole. They learn to be strong is to kill your enemies. You either win or you die. But Mark, who grew up on Earth, he learned about perseverance. In the end, this seems to be how Earth will beat the Viltrums in either the end of this season or a future season. Humans have an insane capacity for pain, and with Mark's superhero blood as well, he is the true superhuman. This lack in training is the downfall of Omni-Man in Season 1, and leads to him being the broken man, a Viltrumite survivor, even though he lost, which doesn't happen where he comes from. But back to Season 2 of Invincible. In that cold open, we see an alternate reality where Mark and Nolan team up, and we also learn that this is the most common outcome. Nolan is happy and quirky, and he acts like the dad we know from the start of the show. Although he's leading this invasion, he feels like his old self, and I'm so glad we saw that in the newest episode, because it really shows the cruel irony of Omni-Man and his weakness of not being able to overcome pain. That was really the final piece of the puzzle on what makes Omni-Man tick, and I love it. If you like Invincible, you probably enjoy great animation, and that's good for you, because I have a video highlighting the best moments in TV animation right here, and Invincible is featured. Make sure to check it out. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you want more Invincible content as Season 2 progresses. I have been Fictional Fanatics. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in that animation video, but until then, bye!